So, we have the topic question over here. Ask yourself, what does the teacher want you to do? Bong. Topic question. Is Shane doing the right thing by resorting to violence? I would choose yes. Booyah. Start with your main point. Just restate the topic question as a statement. Shane does the right thing by resorting to violence. Preview your argument. Shane is only resorting to violence to stand up for what is good, protecting the homesteaders, Joe, and the Starrett family. If Shane does not stand up to Fletcher's violent threats, no one else will. Okay, so you have the basis for your argument. He's doing what's right because 1, he's protecting the homesteaders, and 2, he's protecting Joe and the Starrett family. First body paragraph. Pow! Argument number 1. Shane is protecting the homesteaders from violence. Explain it. Fletcher's cowboys have been harassing the homesteaders, right? Now, take a quote from the expert before you get all flustered thinking, oh, who am I going to quote from? Blah, blah, blah. Get the quote first. Okay, so remember, you could skip around with this. Just fill out everything. Quote number 1 from expert. You know as well as I do what Shane's doing. He's pushing us with this, and he won't let up till one of us gets enough and makes a full play and starts something so he can move in and finish it. End quote. Skip a space, parentheses, 58, period, close parentheses. Now you can find out who said that. Who said that? Henry Shipstead, one of the original settlers in the area. He knows Fletcher better than anyone else. How does that quote back up my argument? Well, Fletcher is trying to instigate a fight with the homesteaders. If a homesteader decides to fight back, Fletcher will, quote, finish the fight by murdering whoever decides to confront them. Fletcher won't be arrested for murder because he'll cite self-defense. There isn't even a sheriff in town to keep order, and the nearest marshal is 100 miles away. That's on page 45. Notice, that isn't an exact quote. However, I did get this information from page 45. And you need another quote, because 2 is always better than 1. Quote number 2. We know that Fletcher's men are a violent group because of what they did to young Morley, Joe's first hired helper. Bob Starrett, Joe's son and story narrator, comma, still remembers the scene when young Morley came back, quote, bruised and beaten, end quote, after confronting Fletcher's cowboys. That's on page 49. Young Morley cursed at father, rode away, and never looked back. Now check this out. The exact word is curse. Cursed. In quotes, but I put the D in parentheses because that D isn't part of the exact quote. Alright, how does that quote back up my argument? Well, Fletcher and his cowboys are dangerous men with violent streaks. Now I should go back to the thesis. The only way for Shane and the homesteaders to stand to these men is to return with forcefulness, a quality that Joe and the peaceful homesteaders render unfamiliar. This explains why Shane has to resort to violence. Second body paragraph. Rap. Argument number 2. The leader of the homesteaders is Joe, and even his wife Marion admits that he is not strong enough to, quote, buck Fletcher alone. After initially accusing Joe of changing Shane, Marion pleads with Shane to stay and fight with Joe. Here's a quote. Joe needs you more than ever now, more than he would ever say, on page 65. Who said that? Marion, Joe's wife. Marion confirms that although pride prevents Joe from asking for Shane's help, Joe knows deep down that he can't fight Fletcher alone. Get another quote to prove that Marion is asking for Shane's help. Marion pleads with intensity, you've got to stay, Shane, no matter how hard it is for us. Joe can't keep this place without you. Page 66. Explain, how does that quote prove your thesis? Marion is well aware of the fact that without Shane, the Starretts and the homesteaders have no chance of bracing, quote, mean and tricky Fletcher, period. She admits that if Shane does what is best for himself and skips town, Joe would lose the home and stability that he promised his family. And I'm not going to go back to the thesis because I don't want it to seem redundant, but you can see from my explanation, this shows why Shane must stay. He must stay so that Joe can keep his home. Now for this essay, I'm only requiring one counterclaim. Introduce the counterclaim. Some may believe that Shane should leave the valley and continue to search for the peace that has eluded him. Some feel that the tension with Fletcher is harmful for Shane because it has made him restless and more reserved. Now remember, Bob, who narrates the tale, says that Shane has, quote, lost the serenity that has seeped into him over the summer. Page 63. Now you gotta tell me why this argument is wrong. Alright? You just explained that he's lost peace. Now you have to explain why it's still okay for Shane to fight. Explain why counter-argument 1 is wrong. However, if Shane has lost his newfound serenity with mere tension with Fletcher, imagine how Shane would feel if Fletcher and his cowboys hurt Joe or Marion Starrett. Imagine how Shane would feel if he left to find peace again, only to learn that Fletcher has taken over the valley and the Starretts have been forced to leave their home. Go back to your main point. Alright, it's optional, but it's important to remind readers of what your argument is. The only way for Shane to regain peace is to do what he, not Joe, is most capable of, staying to fight Fletcher and saving the homesteaders from evil's wrath. See, that sentence shows why Shane is doing the right thing by fighting. Now, conclusion. I'm tired. How do I restate my thesis? This is what you do. Go back to the beginning and just copy your main point. Okay? Bang! Shane does the right thing by resorting to violence. Okay, let's summarize our arguments. This is just cut and pasted. Alright, argument number 1. Shane is protecting the homesteaders from violence. Argument number 2. The leader of the homesteaders is Joe, and even his wife, Marion, admits that he is not strong enough to buck Fletcher alone. Okay, now remember, you're going to reword this. You're not going to use the same exact wording that you used in the essay. And lastly, tell the reader to do or believe in something. Now, reading Shane, I know how the author hypes him up like he's the Rock or something. So I'm going to end with a quote that shows how bad Shane is. Boom. Violence is not always the solution, but if Fletcher is going to stop harassing the homesteaders and pressuring them to give up their land, violence is the only language that Fletcher will understand. And that language will be spoken through Shane. Yeah.